Thank you very much for the chance to present to you, introduce Darktrace. Maybe a few of you have heard of us before and are just following on our journey. But I want to talk about the new approach that we're using to cyber defense, which is known as the enterprise immune system. I have a live demo as well, but just for time's sake, because we are running a little bit behind, if you want to pop over to the stand that we're at, we can go through that and actually demo the product to you. So Darktrace was founded by mathematicians and machine learning specialists from the University of Cambridge. Our headquarters is still there, which is where we do our research and development, but we bring a fundamentally new approach to cybersecurity. We have over 2,000 now, sorry, my slides. Apologies, this is it's not fitting on the screen properly. We have over 2,000 deployments currently worldwide, and we've seen a 600% year-on-year growth, simply because what we're doing is so fundamentally different, but imperative for the changing environment of networks. As I mentioned, our headquarters and research and development sit in Cambridge. We also have a headquarters in San Francisco now as well. Again, apologies, we can see a few of these here. But the point of this slide is to simply articulate the verticals that we work in. So we're able to work across all verticals through retail, media, hospitality, healthcare, and financial services. It's also scalable. You'll notice a few names on there that are much smaller companies that you wouldn't necessarily associate with the cutting edge of cyber defense. But we're able to scale down to our smallest company, which is a 2-person hedge fund in New York, right up to one of the largest top 3 global banks with over 4,000 employees and 1 million devices. So the scalability of Darktrace is endless. The conversation previously that we just came into was very much on the changing landscape of networks and how we're seeing that increase the risk that we're seeing within networks. So the Internet of Things, SaaS environment, cloud, virtual. Every day we're seeing attacks on networks across our client base. And it's the key trends that we're seeing developing. So the landscape's changing and it's moving incredibly fast, which makes it very difficult to stay up to date with rules and signatures, because as new breaches are coming out, it's already happening, it's already in progress, so it's impossible to set a rule to that while something's in progress. We read about data breaches in the media and exfiltration. It's on the news almost daily at the moment, but it isn't these headline-making attacks that are the most dangerous. We're seeing much more complex and even machine learning-based attacks, which are actually using artificial intelligence to hide and move around in networks. Secondly, we're seeing a huge rise in trust attacks, attacks that are aimed at damaging companies' reputation and credibility by undermining data integrity. These are often very stealthy. The attacker's objective appears to be to change data slowly over time, and they can remain in the network for hundreds of days without being noticed. In a bank or hospital, these subtle changes over time obviously have a catastrophic effect on confidence within data. So insider threat is a major concern. Anyone with access to your network is essentially a threat. That's employees, contractors, customers, suppliers. All of these people will have privileged access to your network and therefore can threaten it. Against the backdrop that was previously discussed, the increasing complexity within networks, where a security industry is struggling to keep up with threats posed by this new cloud, virtual, SaaS environments, Internet of Things, and the simple fact of a network without traditional boundaries. So Darktrace approaches it differently. It's clear that the legacy approach that we're seeing of rules and signatures is not sufficient to deal with this evolving network. And this is why we use an approach that's inspired by biological principles of the human immune system. So our product's called the enterprise immune system, and it bears striking resemblance to what our own immune system does. And that's to deal with the challenges that are appearing on a daily basis. So our bodies are attacked by viruses continually. The human immune system expects challenges. It expects threats, I guess. And that's exactly what we're trying to embody within our network. So by expecting the threat, by not assuming that you can fully protect your boundary with rules and signatures, expecting that something could pass through those defenses, those perimeters, and actually cause harm to your network. So how do you do this? What we do at Darktrace is we understand what a network looks like. So bespoke to your environment, we're understanding what your personal network looks like, what makes it up. Within that, we build mathematical models. So we sit in the core of a network. We create a tap or span off the core switch, and from there we build the mathematical models of every device and the users within it. From there, we're able to spot anything anomalous, so anything that happens outside of this model. And we aptly name these models patterns of life because essentially it is what a particular device or a particular user looks like within that environment on a daily basis. So if the network has been breached, if a device has been compromised, it will have to cause that device to act, or that user's credentials to act in a peculiar way outside of that known pattern in order to wreak havoc within a network. And we can detect really subtle changes within that pattern, which is then alerted to you on our 3D visualizer. So Darktrace evolves and adapts with your network, as opposed to saying, this is what bad looks like, defend against this. We appreciate that bad changes on a daily basis. So rather than defining what bad looks like, we're understanding your network, understanding your employees, understanding the devices within it, and therefore alerting you to the abnormalities within that, the subtle changes that could lead to a catastrophic event within the network. So it is a hardware appliance that we sit in the core of a network and look at raw network traffic. So just to briefly recap, we detect threats within real time. So the threats that have gone unnoticed by perimeter defenses, we're alerting you to in real time. We not only work in corporate networks, but also virtualized environments and ICS units. Because of the unique mathematical approach, we're able to create these patterns of life models for every device on the network, not just traditional IT. So every day we're spotting threats, not just in the traditional sense that you'd understand, but we're seeing them in conferencing facilities, CCTV, a range of non-traditional infrastructure, which is increasingly acting as an attack vector. More recently, we've even seen one on a coffee machine. So it just shows you how quickly the network is changing and how quickly that means the risk is evolving. It's also worth mentioning here again that the approach is entirely scalable. So I've just mentioned ICS environments, obviously can be much, much larger than corporate environments, but the threat visualizer, which is here, and again, if you want to have a look in this, me and my team can run through that with you on the stand in a second, and it's a 3D representation, bringing the network to life, essentially, taking you through the alerts that we will highlight to you, but also just showing you your network, which is, difficult to understand without having it played out to you in that lovely 3D visualizer there. So machine learning, very hard to get right. The fundamental basis of Darktrace's technology is machine learning. And the reality is that machine learning is difficult to implement in practice because every network is different. A security solution cannot rely on sets of training data. Networks are way too complicated than that, and they're just getting more and more complicated. And the threats that we're seeing are constantly evolving. It has to scale. You have to be able to work in environments that are changing daily, but also environments where a company, joins with another company and their networks become one. A product has to be able to evolve with that network's journey. As a company changes, as a company grows, so does the security threat, and so the product that you're using to defend needs to work with that. And you also need to deliver a value immediately. A big thing that we see when we do proof of value engagements with clients is ongoing threats, things that are already inside of the network that have gone unnoticed by the current security tools. So we need to be able to deliver value immediately to those clients. And what Darktrace has been able to uniquely do is apply unsupervised machine learning to the real world. So we've proven time and time again across our deployments and our networks, with data moving at different frequencies, that we were able to detect threats that are quite simply going unnoticed by the other security tools. And as I mentioned, the machine learning adapts, grows, and evolves with your business. So it's constantly calculating probabilities based on evolving evidence. So immune system technology, as I said, it finds threats that go undetected. We've detected so far over 18,000 serious in progress threats to date. Obviously, these differ in severity, but all of these have bypassed traditional security tools that were being used by our clients. The threats and attacks come from a multitude of vectors, everything from data manipulation to insider threat, both malicious and non-malicious. I've heard mentioned a few times today about educating your staff, which absolutely is imperative to do, and making sure that people understand the importance of updating passwords, keeping things secure, using VPN where necessary. But we're humans, we make mistakes. It's very difficult to know that when an email comes through, check with that person, have they sent you attachment, should you be opening that? It's very difficult to maintain that level of consciousness at all times. I'm sure we've all fallen flat to it. So as much as you can educate and train, we all make mistakes, and as humans, we are open to it. So we're seeing an increasing number of attacks happening within the network via the non-traditional IT, which, again, is just getting larger and larger. A few of these that I can mention, I'm actually going to jump onto some examples in a minute, but biometric readers, air conditioning units, physical access controls, and even, like I said, even a coffee machine. What Darktrace does when we're modeling, when we're looking at the devices, it's anything with an IP or MAC address on the system. So when we have a conversation with clients to say, how many devices do you have on there? It's usually the most difficult part of the process because they have absolutely no idea. When we start breaking it down into biometric readers, CCTV, VoIP telephony, you tend to see the client's eyes glaze over and think, oh, we need to go back to the drawing board and get a number on this. So just a few examples that we have that we've written up on that we've seen. So the compromise of biometric scanner. So in this case, the scanner was for physical access to a manufacturing company. So we're looking at an ICS unit as well. And then it installed a biometric fingerprint scanner to gain access to the machinery. So this close association with physical and network resources enabled a hacker to successfully exploit this fingerprint scanner. So not only did they gain access to the fingerprint records, which were stored on the system, but they were also able to add new records in order to gain unauthorized access to the physical company premises. So because this abnormal activity that was happening, it didn't correspond to any known signatures within the security or the traditional anti-malware solutions. It wasn't set to detect subtle and discrete operations like this, which caused this particular compromise. But Darktrace was able to detect this attacker's movement using machine learning by understanding what this device, this user looks like, and it had learned that what normal behavior looked like for this scanner, and it had recognized that it had started behaving abnormally. So that's how we alerted on it. That's how we spotted this. And we were able to alert the company before any damage was done, essentially, which, again, is imperative. Another one, just making sure I've got time, video conferencing. I've seen quite a few of these, but this one, really good example. So Darktrace found a hacked Internet of Things device, which was a dangerous vulnerability within the network because it was ongoing when we started working with the client, so it had so far gone undetected. So we detected this unusual behavior from a video conferencing camera. So when we're in a network, obviously we're learning what normal looks like, but we begin to cluster devices and users together. So we can say that, right, okay, these two servers work in a similar way, these two users work in a similar way. And when we overlook this, we can actually see that Darktrace is split off teams within an organization. So you'll see the accounts team are sat together because they typically view the same files, they do the same things, log on at the same time. Their patterns of life are very similar. And Darktrace can do that with devices within the network as well. So by using this clustering, Darktrace was able to see that this video conferencing camera was working abnormally in comparison to the others. So we were able to spot this anomaly whilst we first initially went into the network. So we saw the abnormal behavior within this network as it was transmitting much larger volumes of data outside of the network compared to similar devices. So similar devices to it on the network. The camera had been compromised by a remote attacker, and it was sending data, maybe videos, photos, outside of the corporate network. It was also connecting to other computers as the attacker explored the network, obviously attempting to locate a point-of-sale devices. And Darktrace detected this threat after the device initiated a large upload to a rare external IP. And it communicated with the internal computers that it never usually spoke to. So a backdoor Trojan had been uploaded to the device before Darktrace was installed, allowing it to be remotely accessed from outside of the network. The attacker was likely trying to steal corporate information or take remote control of this particular device with the possibility to launch a DDoS attack on another network, maybe. Either of these would have been a serious security risk to the company. And once Darktrace flagged this behaviour, the company immediately disconnected this camera and started detailed review of their other systems, looking into it. And this would not have been detected. The company would not have seen this with the current signature-based solutions that they had, as the behaviour that they were seeing was not inherently malicious. It wasn't something that they would ordinarily have defined as bad within their signatures. So until something very serious had happened on the network, they may not have known about this compromise. And that's the whole point of Darktrace. We're wanting to give customers the ability to take ownership back, be proactive rather than reactive what's happening on the network, have that level of control with and visibility, which again, please do come over to the stand so we can show you, because it is a fantastic GUI that we have on offer, but giving you that visibility and allowing you to take back that control. So to conclude, just want to summarize what we've spoken about. We very much see at the moment security is an arms race being played out on the networks with customers mentioned before, between the attackers and those trying to defend against it. Attackers are starting to take advantage of complex artificial intelligence and malware that can do damage at a pace way beyond our ability to defend. Rules and signatures are simply not enough in today's environment and ever-changing technologies. They can't cope with the complexity of an increasingly diverse business environment and the complex threat landscape. The threat is now able to move at a pace that defeats the human ability to respond. So no matter how big our security teams might be, if something's happening, something's in progress, you're already steps behind trying to defend against that. The enterprise immune system is a fundamentally new approach in order to combat these evolving threats. And it's powered by mathematics and machine learning. I won't be able to go into the maths in as good detail as Dave Palmer did, but I will certainly make a try. And it understands what normal devices and users look like within the network as a whole, without any prior knowledge, which is most important. We don't have any prior assumptions to what bad looks like. We go in with no preconceived idea of what our network looks like. We just learn and evolve with it. And that makes it possible to detect threats as they emerge without rules and again, please pop over to our stand. I'll be able to go through the user interface with you, but also discuss the proof of value that we offer, which is a 30-day free trial, essentially, to use the product and see for yourself. We call it a proof of value because we know the concept works, but it's the value we want to prove to you and your organisation, what Darktrace offers. I have left some time, I believe. I've got a couple of minutes. Is that okay? Yeah, time's gone. If anybody's got any questions. What's that, sorry? So we are a software company by nature. Hardware is necessary to power the front end of what we're doing. So we license on anything with an IP, devices, IPs on MAC addresses, essentially.
In terms of the way that you map the network itself, and you say that you obviously understand what users are normal, do you do any level of obfuscation on that data to prevent, obviously, you being a potential breach point?
Do we do?
Obviously, you are mapping a customer's network, and obviously you're being able to understand what users are doing and what the devices are on there. Do you actually obfuscate your data in order to prevent you becoming a breach point?
We can discuss what we do for security, but everything that's we do is hosted on the appliance, which is within a client's data center. Everything is obviously encrypted within that. It's a passive appliance, so there's not much that you could do with Darktrace essentially. But if you want to discuss our security, I'm more than happy to, and show certifications and things.